Hello, fellow universal basic income enthusiasts and supporters. In our call today for UBI4ME, we have Marcel,
Hello.
and my name is Daniela. Hello. Just quickly, UBI, Universal Basic Income, in very simple terms, it is money that every single person is getting paid. That's why it's universal. And it's an income because they're getting it every month. And it's basic because you're not supposed, well, the idea is that everyone should have a minimum income to cover their basic needs. It's not for super yacht number three or to go off skiing somewhere in the south of France every wintertime. It's there to make sure that you have a dignified life and you can do whatever you choose to do in the case that you either can't or don't want to work for whatever reason. And the reason is up to you. So therefore, it's universal again as well. So there's no means testing. There's no testing if you can or want to work or not. And every single person receives it, irrespective of if they work or not. So literally everyone gets it, including millionaires, for example. And today we're here to go into one specific detail in terms of who is going to receive it. Because quite often I hear that, oh, foreigners should not get it. They didn't pay into our system. Why should they get it? And in a recent conversation that foreigners comment, it does not sit well with me, I should point out at this point, just so you just to set my bias for you so you know where I'm coming from. And the reason is that, well, where do you draw the line in terms of who should get it? Citizen versus resident versus everyone in a location. So let's look at that in a bit more detail today. And Marcel, do stop me and chip in if you want. But otherwise, just a quick set of definitions of what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking citizen versus resident versus everyone. So the citizen of a country generally is a person born in the country or born to parents of that country. So it's somebody who holds the passport of that nation. There may be other definitions out there. Marcel, do you want to add something briefly?
I don't think it's limited to a passport, but yeah, I mean, in general, when people talk about a citizen, it's somebody who's eligible for a passport of that country. We also have the scenario where people have multiple passports. That doesn't mean they are citizens in multiple countries, they just are eligible to those passports. So we need to be a bit more
Exactly.
careful about what we say, with the passport it is. But I think it's beside the point based on the discussion. But carry on.
Yes. And we're going to get into some examples in terms of citizen, because other than citizen, as you rightly pointed out, one person can have multiple passports, but only one body lives in is in one physical space in any one country at any one point, and that brings us to residence. So you may be born into one country, grow up in one country, and then for whatever reason you decide to move elsewhere. So you live elsewhere, but you may not be a citizen of that country. And again, do those people qualify for a UBI of that country? Yes or no? How long would they have to be there? Is a long holiday good enough, or do you have to register and so on? And then that brings me to the next point. If you're neither a citizen nor a resident, you still could potentially spend an awful lot of time in one place without being either of those two. And would you qualify then? And that's why when I started thinking about today, I started thinking about different scenarios. So the first one is the citizen. It makes sense that citizens get the UBI. There seem generally there is some kind of taxation system. People pay into the government, and they want something coming back out. Either it's healthcare, education, pension systems, and so on. So a universal basic income falls into that category. So it would kind of intuitively make sense that a citizen receives a UBI from the country they have citizenship in. But what happens if that citizen is not a resident of the country? And that happens relatively frequently. If somebody has citizenship in one country, gets a job offer elsewhere, or retires and wants to spend the last 20, 30, 40 years in another place, maybe with a little bit more sun, then they would still receive the universal basic income of the country with citizenship, but they wouldn't be resident there anymore. So, what's your opinion on that situation? Should they still receive it? Yes or no?
I think the term citizen income or citizen basic income has been used quite a bit. The I disagree with the use of citizen, as you said. There's a few scenarios where that doesn't make sense. Why should someone receive a nice Northern European income from their basic income and go live in a relatively poor country and therefore be much better off because of that? So that income discrepancy between countries, which is a separate topic for discussion, makes it unrealistic, going forward. Also, it means that people who are in the country contributing to the economy probably, but don't get a UBI, pay taxes and things like that, shouldn't be getting it because they're not a citizen of that country. They should only be getting it from their country of origin, where you have the reverse scenario where somebody comes from a relatively poor country which has a relatively low basic income, and they have expected to live and have that as an income in their country. I think, it's a very popular concept that only citizens should get it. Only the people who are part of our clan, basically our group, our in-crowd, should get it. Is a very popular notion, and it is used quite a bit in discussing UBI. But I think it does have the general foreigners are bad associated with it. I also think from if I may continue, the registration for being resident in a country is almost a prerequisite to be able to receive a basic income. So we talk about whether there should be residents or whether anybody should receive it. It's interesting thought that just registering yourself as being resident, which is a legal requirement already, so there's nothing new to be set up there. We don't have to have UBI, requiring a different registration system. Anybody who's registered as a resident could be eligible or should be eligible for a UBI, is my personal feel for these things going forward. But I'll let you carry on with your examples and your comparisons.
This is exactly what I would like to get to, that thought that we have the registration process in most countries, nearly every country I've ever been in has the registration process already. There are different requirements, there are different timelines, but overall the registration process is in place. So we can utilize that. I would make the requirement that if anyone, let's use me as an example. If I were to move to a country that has a universal basic income, I register there, then my thinking is that I should receive it as soon as I'm registered from the day of registration. And in addition, that would mean that I give up any other universal basic income, maybe even other pensions and things like that. I don't receive any at the moment, but there are plenty of people who potentially would move all of their social benefits, so for example, pensions, and instead simply receive the universal basic income of the place they actually live in and are registered in. The reason for that is that it allows flexibility. It allows people to move around. This day and age, it's common for young people to move to another country, gain some experience, get some work experience, life experience, and so on. And all of the benefits would simply be derived from the place that they live in, rather than some other place that may be the other side of the world. And to me, that makes sense. So, in other words, everyone who lives in a place who is officially registered there are some people, and Marcel, I think you may have an opinion on that as well, but there are some people that still may fall through the cracks, and it's important to briefly touch on them as well. Over the years, I've come across a couple of people who wanted to start a new life elsewhere in a different country, ran out of money, didn't find a job, and found themselves out of a home, out of a job, out of money, and they got stuck. I'm not saying it happens to millions of people, but there are some, and it's worthwhile thinking about them as well. Because if we can set up and think about a system that works and functions well for those that usually fall between the cracks, then it's going to work for everyone else as well.
It's the usual discussion about who shouldn't get it, but the real problem, I think, going forward will be finding the people that should be getting it but aren't getting it for whatever reason. So I think we should stop worrying about who shouldn't be getting it. It's quite often the millionaire discussion, illegal immigrants, criminals, all those fringe cases of people that shouldn't be getting it. Whereas we shouldn't worry about people getting it unnecessarily. What we should be worrying about is people who are not getting it, even though they should. So a lot of homeless people fall in that category because they've fallen out of the system. They don't have a bank account. They don't have the various requirements needed to be able to receive any form of income, and they won't be able to receive it. And I think they could be citizens. They could be people who've just, as you said, fallen through the cracks of the system. For whatever reason, people always blame, the victim for their scenario, which is rather cruel. But we shouldn't, worry about why someone is in the position they're in. We should be doing what we can to help. And there's a lot to be said about a society that is judged by how you treat the people at the bottom. And I think we should be looking at, trying to make sure that everyone that's there, whether they're registered or not, is able to receive a UBI. And it's for the benefit, of the country. We've talked about it in previous scenarios, in previous meetings, where homelessness is drastically reduced just by giving people money, right, so that they can, find somewhere to live. UBI addresses the homeless problem. It's a lot cheaper to give people money, to give people accommodation, to give people, the things they need, than it is to deal with the homeless problem, as some people like to refer to. So, we've discussed whether homeless people should or whatever shouldn't. Everybody should be getting it. The whole point of UBI is the U in UBI is the universal, that everybody should be getting it. It's easy enough to talk about registration and getting, making sure that everyone who's registered to be in the country is expected to be here for long term, is contributing to the economy and things like that. Everybody should be getting it. And worrying about the cheats, the people that are still registered in their country, which may not have a UBI, but they get a pension. Other sources of income shouldn't matter. It shouldn't impact people's ability to receive a UBI. What you want to do is make sure that the people in your country, in your region, in your state, whatever border you want to put it, are receiving an income so that they can basically get that money circulating back into the economy. Because if they're getting the money, they're spending the money. And the people at the bottom of the ladder are more likely to spend it than the people at the top.
I completely agree. And one of the reasons why it appears as if now is the time for universal basic income is exactly what you said, the circulation of money. Money has three functions or roles, basically. One of them is to buy stuff, basically instead of bartering, that everything can have a value. The other one is a store of wealth. And that store of wealth topic is not aligned with circulation. So if we have one person storing all of the money, in an extreme example now, or the top 10 people maybe, then the rest of the people don't have anything to circulate and build an economy around it. And we have seen, or we are at the start of that, where fewer and fewer people have a lot of money stored away somewhere, and a lot of people have not a lot that they can move around to circulate. And that's why I think now is the time to do it. As we've just pointed out, making it happen in terms of who ought to receive it. The structures are there. We know who lives in which city. There's a lot of registration, a lot of governance around who is in which situation. Just go into any country and speak to the taxman, and you'll find out how much information is kept on people. So all of those processes, they're basically there. And on on the flip side, so now talking about the positives, talking about the downsides now, we are at the point where people start losing their jobs. And in addition, fewer jobs are being opened up. So I've seen a good write up a little while ago by Gemma Radio in Scotland, who has done some analysis saying, well, job numbers have been going down for the last 10, 15 years, but those people that apply for jobs, as well as job seekers that are officially on unemployment, are going up. And it's reached a point where there aren't enough jobs for every single person. In addition, the current AI revolution, say that way. I'm a big fan of technology. I do think it's going to be good in the long run. But until we get to the long run picture, we will have some hurdles. And one of them currently is that fewer people are earning money with it, and a lot more people are going to need help or something just to make it to the end of the month. And that is why I think right now is the time to not only think about it or talk about it or not have yet another pilot. Thank you, UK. There is another pilot that's starting right now. It's going to be running for 2 years or 3 years, which is not anything related to UBI, which would be in perpetuity, forever, literally forever. Your whole life, you would receive money every single month. So you don't need to think about it. You just receive it. You can feed yourself, you can clothe yourself, you can house yourself. And then you can go and look for a job if that's what you want to do. Or you can find out what you actually want to do with your life. And every single person I've met either has a dream and a passion that they want to follow, or they are curious about what they want to do. Look in kindergarten or in school for the younger children. Everyone has something that they're interested in. And if you continue with that, and if you foster that curiosity, and if you foster some of that creativity around it, and give them the education, give them the AI and the technology to make something happen with it, then I believe then we're in that long run scenario where the world can be so much better than it is now. Just imagine there's no more aggression on the underground, subway, metro, whatever you call it. But I'm sure a lot of you will have been in a scenario of public transport. It's really cramped, it's hot, it's crowded and sweaty, and people start getting tense because it's not comfortable, it's not what they want to do. Now imagine all of those people doing something that is more aligned with the real dream, with how they can contribute to society. As I said, the structures, the taxman, the registrations, all of that is set up already. In one episode, we even went over how we can fund it. And yes, it can be funded simply by making sure that every single legal entity, every single legal person pays the same tax rate. And that means every legal person, like I'm a legal person, as well as Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. If we were to pay the same tax rate, either I wouldn't pay anything or they would pay a lot more. And so if everyone paid the same tax, then it can be funded. It is a viable proposition, but that would need to happen. And I propose that right now is the right time to make those changes happen. Just giving you a break to add your opinion.
No, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think it's interesting that the job numbers in the US, for example, are not changing as much as one would expect with all the AI layoffs that are happening. But we also were speaking just a few years ago about all the self-driving cars and self-driving trucks putting a huge proportion of the employed economy being drivers, contribute a huge amount of employment to the economy, being made redundant. And they were being told that they would need to learn how to program because there were lots of programming jobs. And the irony is that it's the programming jobs that are being, replaced by AI now, before the self-driving has been, fully implemented, fully successful. That's been delayed because of, the usual last few difficult problems that need to be solved, taking longer than one would expect. And the same story is happening with the AI replacing programming jobs. People are saying, the quality is not there. A lot of companies are regretting making the layoffs and they need to rehire programmers now, things like that. But I do think it's a short-term, relatively short-term problem that, the pace of AI, pace of which it's been improving, has been so rapid that people have been able to make layoffs in advance, effectively, to try and not be left behind, because the programming that's been done by AI, even if it's done by a large language model, which is basically focused on creating conversations, not creating code, is improving, and it's improving to such an extent that it's finding bugs that have lain dormant for literally for decades, that have been left undiscovered. And it's not only discovering the bugs, but also finding ways to exploit it. So they need to be fixed quickly, and they are being fixed. If anyone has a computer and updates their computer regularly, you've noticed there've been a lot more updates recently, and that's because of AI. And that's just within the last year. So imagine another year from now, how much further those AI programmers will be. It may be regretting laying off people now, but I think it'll be very different again in 12 months' time.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, it will happen. As I said, I'm a big fan of progress and technology, and the long term is what I'm looking forward to, because it will be a better future compared to now. Just the way I think that right now, 2026, is a better time than 1926, for example. We have sanitation, proper sanitation. We have medical services if something goes wrong, things like that. You can go to the shops and choose between more than 3 or 4 dresses or shoes or whatever you're wanting to buy. And I'm picking really simple examples here.
I think the best example I was given recently was hot showers.
Oh yeah, hot showers, the best. Hot showers, heating in wintertime. Things like that, air conditioning in summertime, and either you're in winter or summer right now, but I'm guessing you understand what I mean by air conditioning or heating. Things like that that make life better. I grew up with my grandparents close by and my great grandparents close by. I saw a little glimpse into the past, and trust me, there were some good things back then, and I'm not going to knock them. There were some really, really good things, but at the same time, I prefer now. I really, really do prefer now. It's better on so many levels. Anyone above a certain age, and I let you decide what age it is, anyone who has experienced more than a few decades knows how things were before the mobile phone was invented, for example, as another one, before the internet, things like that.
Before the washing machine.
I don't remember those days. But I do remember a time that television was running for 2 hours a day. That's just how it was. And tough luck if you wanted entertainment. Here's a book, things like that. And people growing up now can't imagine anymore because they don't know how it was. And your personal opinion on electronics, even my one, is neither here nor there. But the opportunity to have something, to be able to use it if you choose to do so, that, in my opinion, is better than it used to be in the past. And that's why I believe in the future. There will be a better future for people in general compared to now. Does that future involve every single human working for a paycheck? No. 100% no, because currently that's not the case. We have people on this planet who don't work for a paycheck. The biggest population, pensioners, who get a pension from the government, for example, which is technically is a UBI. They will, for the rest of their life, get a monthly paycheck. Secondly, really, really rich and wealthy people. They don't have to work for a living. They can do whatever they want all day. They can lie around and do nothing because somebody in the past, in the family history, has accumulated enough wealth for them to do nothing, if that's what they choose to do. And so the idea that every single person has to work for a paycheck is not true at this point in time and never has been true. So it won't be true in the future either. Will everything be automated by robots with AI? I don't know. I sure hope so. AI doctors, specific programs that are not allowed to treat people on their own yet, but programs are often more precise than human people, simply because they take data on face value. Being a woman, I don't have the luck that I need to actually get the right diagnosis and things. No, a robot doesn't really care how I was born, what my skin color is, what my gender is, what I look like on the day. They just look at what's wrong with the body and fix it. Things like that. So there will be progress that is so much better than what we have now, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
I think the key thing from a UBI perspective is the notion that people have to work, have a job to feed themselves. And it's that notion that has to change. That you should be able to feed yourself with or without a job. We have enough food. We have enough automation already to feed everyone. We have enough accommodation, to house everyone. We don't have to force people to work so that we can feed ourselves. We don't have to force people to work so that we can clothe ourselves. We don't have to force people to work so that we can cover the basic needs, which is what a UBI will give. We have that automation in place and machines in place already to do that. And worrying about AI taking people's jobs should be a pleasure. If we change the narrative, just for an example, not the way I'm suggesting, but if we change the narrative to say that if you're able to automate your job, right, you no longer have to do it. You'll still get paid, you just don't have to do it anymore. How much more would people be in favor of AI and automation? How much more would people be spending their time trying to automate their jobs away so they don't have to do it anymore? Right? However, if you enjoy your job, if you enjoy being an artist or a author or whatever it might be, the creative aspect of your job, if you enjoy programming even, there's a lot of jobs that people do. You don't need to automate it. You do it anyway, right? But what you don't have to do is be able to sell your book, to sell your art, to be able to feed yourself. You can spend all day writing that novel in the way you want it, not in the way your editor expects you to write it, right? You can spend all day creating the art the way you want it, what makes you happy, makes you express your creativity without worrying about whether you be able to sell this art to anybody for enough money to be able to feed yourself. And I think that is the future we need to talk about. The fact that AI and automation, right, removes the need for everyone to have to work. We're already beyond that point where everybody has to work, right? And we need to remove the need for people to find something that pays enough to feed themselves. Allow people to do whatever they want, to contribute in whatever way they want, right? Who are we to judge whether that is worthy of a paycheck? Who are we to judge whether the contribution made by people who don't get paid at the moment, carers, for example,
Mothers.
Housewives,
Mothers,
who do an awfully important job, right? who do it anyway. They're doing it without getting paid. They do it anyway, right? But let's pay them. Let's pay everyone, and let's pay everyone equally for whatever contribution they're making, and stop judging whether that contribution is worth more than somebody else's. Yeah, because you were born with brains. Just because you were lucky enough to be born intelligent and get a good job, get a good degree, does that mean you should get paid more than somebody who's born, with a lower intelligence? I think not. I think everybody should be given the same amount, and we shouldn't be judging whether some are worthy of it or not. And I think that's why UBI, the universal UBI, is so important.
I agree, very much so. And now is the time for it. And one reason why now is the time for it is that within the EU, there will be another attempt to get the members of parliament within the EU to debate universal basic income. There will be more news coming out over the next couple of weeks in terms of where the project is at this point. So if you see this and it's 2026, 2027, do go and find out. I'll put the link down below as soon as I have more information myself, because we need every single signature to get to enough signatures to get it debated in parliament and then set up and passed ideally. So now is definitely the time to do something. And doing in this context right now, first step is to sign a petition. That's all there is, just a tiny little step from all of us, get it discussed and debated, and then obviously lobbying the European members of parliament so that they are in favor just as much as we are.
And voting for those
Yes.
members of parliament who support a UBI.
Yes. And so every single step along the way will help to make it happen. Initially, a signature, voting for them, calling them, emailing them, making sure it stays on the it stays in the limelight, that people talk about it, that people know about it. And that is literally everything that's required from us at the moment. When I say us, it's myself, as well as you and everyone who wants a UBI and who may be involved in this project in the long run.
Yeah, if you can put the link in the description, that'd be fantastic.
I will, yeah, definitely. Because we will need every single person that you can think of, that I can think of, that Marcel can think of, that you can think of. Get all your friends, your family to talk about it, discuss it, get them to sign, even if they don't think it's the right thing to go. But let's have the discussion anyway, because if we don't have the debate, then nothing will ever happen. If there is a discussion and a debate, then, well, we will see where we stand at this point.
Exactly.
Do you have anything else for today, Marcel?
No, I think we've pretty much covered the U in UBI today. I think if anybody disagrees, love to hear from them, love to hear why. Some people deserve it and others don't. What is the reason for it? Because I can't think of one. I think we should all be getting it, regardless of who we are, where we've come from, or what we do.
Correct. Yes. And with that, I'll say goodbye to everyone. Have a good month of June. And we will see you the first Tuesday in July, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, UTC. So please check your time zone and we will speak then. Bye bye.
Bye.